Roles of a denizen. A content creator is a user that creates posts and is rewarded based on the quality of their content. A content evaluator is a user that helps assess the quality of content and enforces community standards. The evaluator is effectively taking part in a marketplace to curate content and is rewarded for early evaluation. A content consumer is a user that wishes to find and consume the most valuable content in a given subject area or within a community. A lair owner is a person holding tokenized ownership of all or part of a community lair. Owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their lair. Owners are incentivized to build the best community of content creators and evaluators.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's DENDAO call. We do this on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. And as always, there's a post up in the DENDAO layer with a link where you can join the call if you want, or you can chime in with a reply to that post, or if you just want to hop into YouTube chat, that's fine as well. I see Hyperion Frequency is with us there, driving and listening. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to run through, put out a couple of updates. Couple of GIs resolved. We've got LCP coming up for February, and there's some migration stuff that we'll talk about that will explain any of the issues that you might have seen earlier this week with like avatar images and stuff like that as they were migrated to a different location. So we've got myself and Joe with us. How you doing, Joe? Good afternoon.
Hello.
So right off the bat, we've got LCP starting Tuesday next week. So that's going to be every month we do an LCP. There's a proposal phase where you can go in and say, hey, here's a layer that I think should exist. And this is the way that you can get them created for free. If the community votes it in, it gets created for free. And that happens the following week whenever there's the commitment phase. So as you use Den, you will earn matter. When you earn matter, that will be automatically staked and you will yield lore rewards. For that, with that, rather, you can vote on layers. If the layer that you vote on wins, you get a 1-for-1 swap out of lore for lot. The lot is the layer ownership tokens. And then depending on how well that layer does, you earn matter rewards from it, and you can start the cycle all over. That's kind of the game loop on that one, if you want to think of it that way. So proposals start Tuesday. So think about if you want to get anything made. I probably will go ahead and propose a virtual geocaching layer, even though I'm using just the gaming layer for that right now. And I think it should stay in the gaming layer. But since it'll take a few months to get enough support, I'm going to go ahead and probably get that ball rolling now because that's a lot of fun. So far, and this is just a personal note, so far it looks like Alxons has been to the system, shared some screenshots. I haven't checked the wallet to see if that geocache has been claimed yet, but if you're interested in what I'm talking about there, I'm running a little experiment proof of concept in the gaming layer where you can pop into a video game and find some tokens. And so that should be cool. Oh, and Joe, thanks for adding. Here's what I'll put out is Joe added 1 million lore to the pot on that. So yes. Not only is there 256 matter, about $5 worth of ether for gas to move it to your own wallet that you control. And then if you just come in and you could like sign a message or something with that wallet that you transferred to prove that it's yours on Den, and then Joe will tip you out with 1 million lore that can be used in the upcoming LCP. So if you want 1 million lot in something, you can use this 1 million lore to get it. So there's a little bit of extra reward, extra treasure in the treasure chest, if you will. So anyway, that's what I'm up to. That's what Joe has added to that is what it
And
is.
I'm going to add it every week. You can't do it yet. You won't be able to do it during the proposal phase next week. But I want at least one more unique voter on the current thing layer proposal so that we can get
Yes.
it. We can get it created. So I want to
Yeah.
campaign
So
for that.
that's a good point. So since we're getting ready for the next LCP, the way that you create layers is there's a way to do it for free, which is the LCP. You propose it. That gets into the pool of things people can vote on, and then people go vote on it. We choose a winner based on most unique voters and lore committed. We also allow any runners up by unique voter count in that category to be created with a fee. Up top 5 runners up can be created even if you didn't win the LCP. You can pay a matter based fee to get that created. You can also pay for anything more than 8 unique voters. You can pay 2,500 matter to get that created. That's pretty interesting because you could get a pretty low number of owners in it, which would theoretically make just a more interesting lot holder dynamic. And then, of course, that's just the LCP way. At any time, even outside of an LCP cycle, anybody can come in and create a custom layer if they pay for it. And so I think it's 0.66 ether worth of matter is how you can get your own custom layer created. And that comes with however many lot you want. Bring your own lore. You can distribute that to however many owners you want if you want to bring a pre-existing club or DAO or something like that. And then it comes with some defaults, which is you're using the lot as the governance token. You have the default governance setup that we have in most of the layers. But also that comes with customization, where if you want to use an outside token for governance, you can do that. If you want to modify the governance strategy, you can do that. Some of the more complicated customizations will cost more just because it takes some dev resources to implement it, but you can do whatever you want. And more importantly, the big difference between that and an LCP is that the LCP layers are permanently that number of lot, whereas the custom layers, you have the flexibility of issuing new lot as often as you want. And this is how things like World Blockchain Roundtable, for example, can mint new tokens to give out as rewards of ownership to democratize and decentralize the ownership of that show and let the community direct it. So that's how we do things there.
Yeah.
So there's my spiel on the LCPs. Let's check out the last 2 governance issues. We talked about them last week. They are related. They both passed. One was proposed by Joe, and you proposed that we auto-subscribe people to layers as they win the LCP. So if you think about the different ways to make a layer I just talked about, this would apply only to the LCP layers, not the private layers, not the business or custom layers, but it would auto-subscribe people to the new layers as they're won. And then people would need to unsubscribe if they decided they hate that and they don't want it. So that's fine too.
Yep.
So that passed. And in the discussion of that was a suggestion by I Am for I Am, or some conversation with I Am for I Am, about maybe retroactively applying that to LCPs in the past, which would be just like, obviously right now that's like a lot of layers. So everybody would get a lot of layers subscribed at once, but that should be the only time that happens. Going forward, it would only be, the 2 or 3 layers that win, or however many is in the LCP. So that passed also, and that's already been implemented, in fact. So you might notice that you have a bunch of layers that you're subscribed to. As you scroll through your home feed, you might see content that you're not used to seeing in there, and that could be a good thing. And if it's not a good thing, you can unsubscribe from the layer if you don't want anything to do with it. Now, there are some caveats. Joe put out Tuesday that we were going to try to not subscribe you to layers that you have already previously been subscribed to, but specifically unsubscribed from.
Right.
So that actually is what happened. We did that. Pretty cool blockchain stuff, man. It's on the ledger. You're able to say, okay, based on this, you can tell that somebody has already unsubscribed to it. So don't include that. I thought that was a pretty cool demonstration of capability. Simple, but interesting. And then also we didn't, like I said, we didn't auto subscribe anybody to private layers, of which there are several. we didn't auto-subscribe anybody to eroticism, for example, because we didn't want to automatically throw everybody into the NSFW layer. So that all worked out pretty cleanly. Everything's got about 6.9 thousand denizens subscribed to it, give or take. And so yeah, see what your feed looks like now. You might be pleasantly surprised, and if not, you're just gonna have to unsubscribe from it again. And this is the one time that so many layers will be added like that. So that's done. I'm going to try this weekend to make a tutorial and put up as an experiment, because theoretically a lot more people should see my tutorial that I post in the tutorials and how-to layer.
Yes.
Right. So for visibility, and that really was the point, was getting the visibility there. If people want to unsubscribe, awesome. Like, that's just up to the content creators to make good content that people want to stick around for. But going forward, it'll bring visibility to the new layers, and it's kind of a prize for winning the LCP too, right? It comes with comes with some subscribers, comes with denizens to look at it, and it's up to you to make that interesting enough to keep them around. But in the beginning, you get the visibility from winning the LCP. So I think all that's pretty cool, and obviously so does the community, because if you don't know, I'll tell you, you can vote on the DENDAO proposals even if you don't have lot for the DENDAO layer. That's the one thing where if there's a DENDAO proposal, if you've been using Den at all, you should have some governance weight in there just based on your behavior. So cool. Shout out to I Am for I Am. No problem. He's being a grandpa and babysitting, so he can't join us today. That's all right.
Nice.
So there's the GIs. And then I also wanted to briefly talk about migration stuff and what that means. Oh, my voice is soothing for the baby. That's good. I'm in my relaxed chill chair right now because I was having a headache, so I switched into a comfortable mode. I'm glad that my voice is comforting.
Need some ocean waves.
Yeah. So if you remember, a while back, Dragon Chain did a bunch of migration already on some systems, and if you look far enough back, there's been a lot going on, kind of ever since basically around the time we started talking to Sada. And there's been some rewrites, there's been some upgrades, there's been some migrations, all kinds of cool stuff. And now Den has done some migrations too. So this week, if you noticed that your avatar wasn't showing up, or some of the layers had images in the banner that wasn't showing up for a little while, if you noticed that the website wasn't loading for you a little bit yesterday, for example, there were some DNS changes, there were some hosting changes, there was some location of where these files are located, migrations happening. That's what that was about. So I just wanted to put that out as here in case anybody was wondering what that was about. That's what that was about. And that should be done, except one big thing is we still got to finalize how, like, the strategy on this. I think it's basically figured out, but there's going to be, everybody should make sure they have access to the email account they use to sign up for their Den account, right? Joe, is the thing I wanted to put out. So
yes.
If and when we come to the point where your accounts need to have the email reset, we expect that's probably going to happen in the near future, to where when you go to log in, it'll say, hey, we sent you an email confirmation, reset your password. So if you see that, having access to the email that you signed up with is going to be key in making sure that's a smooth. Everything else was, under the hood. This is the one thing where the community overall is going to need to participate in changing their password, that kind of thing.
And high level, it's because we can't transfer the auth verification data, so it has to be regenerated in the new system. Maybe you can talk about that'll set up for future integration too. Without going into too much detail, this is essentially long awaited. We've every time that we came upon it before, we wanted to do it, but other priorities would come in, and we weren't able to. But essentially, to prepare the fundamentals for integration of factor and better identity. It's like, say, half of the issues that we have found various solutions for, including some of the trolling stuff, some of the brigadiering. Is that the right word I want?
Brigading.
Sorry, brigadiering. Jeez. Yeah, brigading. That essentially identity, or a better identity, would have helped us a lot. So we're going to try to get with this change, we're going to have at least the base in place for making that happen, which would be amazing, because then all of a sudden there will be no proxy stuff. So because right now, although votes, content, post replies, and other actions are on chain, they're not signed by the end user, and so this will effectively make it possible for us to really make that happen, which will be amazing. So
Yep, that'll be cool. I was different conversation kind of, but I was kind of exploring some ways to do things on an L1 that I'm sort of conceptualizing. And one of the things was, using things like MetaMask just to sign shit, even if you don't making it easy for people to have an identity that they bring with them. So, even if it's not something that you have to even broadcast on Ethereum, just using the infrastructure of the existing wallets and stuff to be able to sign stuff that you can then point at internally and say, nope, this was their identity that signed it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
and we've had a couple of
cool
systems
stuff
that have done this already. Like, say, we turned it off because we wanted to do more, and it's a long story, but Eternal was the first to do this, and we've built two other systems that did something similar, and we have one that's being built right now, and effectively it would be something where the user themselves, whether they're on mobile app or on browser, would not know anything about crypto. It just automatically generates a key pair, registers the key pair, and then everything they do will be signed. So that type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, Factor is really cool. It's complex, but it's really cool, and that'll be this is the perfect test bed for it. I am for I am says, and this is something that I hadn't heard. I heard some things about it back, mostly when Trump was in office. He was pushing for this too. But Fox Business says Senate is asking Google and Apple to remove TikTok from the app stores. And so, yeah, I don't know if Den could take advantage of that or not. I know that like TikTok does a lot of, it's a different kind of thing. Like they themselves are a video platform that comes with a bunch of special effects, and you can make, like there's a lot of stuff TikTok does that we're not even trying to do, kind of thing. But that's a good question. I don't know. Anytime that if there's a bunch of people getting booted off of a platform, I'm more than happy to look at ways to say, hey, swing by here and see if you can, take over Den instead. But good question. I don't have an answer for it. I don't know how to approach that demographic, to be honest with you, or if it's even worth it. But it probably is worth it. I just don't know how to appeal to that particular demographic.
And I have something. I don't know if I should bring it up now or wait until you're through the agenda. Something to
that is the agenda.
About. Okay.
The migration stuff was the last bit. So
okay.
That was
okay. It. So I would at least like to start anybody who is here listening with the process of thinking through how we would want to further expand the governance in terms of high level vision, some of which obviously is subject to interpretation or denial by DENDAO, right? But high level vision that I would propose would be that we make an effort to open source the entire platform, and or the entire platform minus potentially segregated experimental pieces. Like say, if we have to test something before, if it's like the brigading code, if we have to test something before we expose it, so that it's a proper test, right?
Right.
That being in the mix, possible, but essentially though, to open source the platform, number one, and then to create some mechanism wherein either DENDAO lot or potentially some bit of mining pool or something else for people to develop. And it could be something where then, DENDAO would come in and say, hey, we would like to propose the building of X. And, maybe there's already some, members who can provide part of it, right? Or we already have some code to do X. Maybe if we bring that to the table, or if it's, since it's open source, someone else could bring it in. And then the other side would be, maybe having a pool for development, and whether it's Matter or Lot or Lore or whatever, where a dev could come in and would be rewarded for contributing code. And if we did that, it could be based upon unit tests, where effectively, if you want something to work, you have to go through at least a reasonable amount of rigor to make sure, both from the business side, but also from the technical side, that hey, we're wanting to build something that does X, and here are the unit tests that test that it actually does X.
Gotcha.
And that essentially then DENDAO could approve those unit tests with a either budget or some type of reward, and I don't know whether that'd be standardized or not, but bigger things could have bigger rewards, and essentially whoever builds this in and where it passes this test would be rewarded that. And it'd just be a good way to open up our ability to to draw in other resources, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. That's what one of the things I definitely like about it, because like we could crowdsource funding for specific features if we have an estimate of what is this, what's a good reward that should attract a developer to come in and build it for us,
Right.
And then with the unit tests, and somebody gives a pull request, we can review it, check it out, and then we could even vote on whether to approve that pull request in the DENDAO GI and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I remember you talked before about even making it to where like the approval of the DENDAO vote is hooked into GitHub and automatically merges it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And that's down the road, I'm sure, but that's in that direction. I'm an open source fan. I'm a GNU guy.
Yeah.
Card carrying Free Software Foundation guy. So I'm typically for that.
Well, and by the way, it could. Here's the thing. You think about this. This is not something that people will probably get overnight, but there is such a need in the open source community for better forms of governance. I mean, I've given a talk on this years ago, and they got it immediately. Now, the details weren't there, right? This was before Dragon Chain. It was open source, but it's before we were commercial that I gave this talk, and it was obvious that there was a need for it. And you imagine if Den could provide plugins for GitHub that would allow a project to come in or even just plain Git, but whatever, would allow a project to come in and organize the behaviors they want and to have a discussion forum that, and more importantly, to have the governance. So, and here's the weird thing about it. Obviously, you want to reward the builders, you know, the devs for providing but here's the interesting thing. There is a need for a balanced form of governance where you imagine this. Let's say there's a corporate entity who happens to use our open source code.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, there is a direct relationship between their contributions to the project, you know, monetary, to say, hey, we use your stuff and it's free, so we're going to give you $100,000 a year, right, to help fund your project and make sure that it keeps maintained.
In their best interest, yeah, right.
Yep. And now that monetary contribution is directly tied to governance. So they also can compete with other corporates that are using that code in prioritizing the next things built, right? Which might be strategically important to them. So
yeah, and that could be based on votes, but also based on whether or not that feature is funded or not.
Yep, and it's beautiful because then it ends up, because essentially they would be able to tie those dollars directly to funding for projects within a time period. So, you know, our budget is, we pull in this much a year, so we have, you know, $100,000 to spend on building whatever it is decided in this quarter, and it happens that everybody voted on this, and it is funded by someone who did contribute. And boom, there we go. And the interesting thing is, you know, it's nice because it's tied to it, but it actually would drive those corporates to be more likely to contribute. And it's a voluntary thing, but they really get something for it. So,
yeah. So open sourcing, I think, is something we eventually wanted to do anyway. The question of when the right timing of that is probably an open question. Is the first open question. Integrating it more deeply with GitHub is probably a more long-term effort, I would guess. I am for I am brings up a good point that it's an entirely different type of like people that would be attracted by that.
Well, is he talking about TikTok, or was he talking about?
Oh, maybe I am is catching up from the beginning of the call because he came in late.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
right.
But if not, it is also a different type of people with GitHub and stuff too, because you know, and I'll even say maybe even to our detriment a little bit, we wanted to make sure that we were appealing to the most diverse or accessible to like average people, normal people. But it would be nice to get a lot more technical people, development-minded people on too, if for no other reason than like we don't have a lot of people that actually use a lot of people don't participate in the governance weighting for liquidity pools, for example. And I think a lot of that is because we don't have a lot of people who understand it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think getting more people that are computer technical, nerdy type of, whether it's blockchain or just coding people that get it, that understand like the under the hood, how this works, could not only be beneficial for bringing in people that want to write new features and bring in, you know, code for new stuff, development resources, but also in helping to balance the economy in a way that allows people to participate more heavily in governance if they want to and they understand how it's done and that kind of thing. So that could be those would be my two arguments for it. Would be like, I think that really like the LP thing, that's more of like crypto people, not necessarily GitHub people. But the GitHub people would get it. Sorry for the pun.
Well, and like say, as an example, one of the first things that I would like to even propose if we do build this as and you know, I don't know if this would be, frankly, when weighted against everything else, the most important thing, but I would like to see development and implementation of a behavior-based liquidity pool that we could potentially leverage a little more natively. Just imagine if you if your governance as it is tied to both content ownership and economic reputation. Imagine if when you're holding Matter, that it not only gives you better score for the governance, how your votes get weighed, but also potentially earns you more Matter or lore or whatever directly in a pool where if I need to come in and I want to create my own layer and I have to pay 2,500 Matter plus I have to get lore. Imagine if that lore was coming from some other denizen who, because they have a good reputation, is getting a better price than they otherwise would, right?
There is a spot for that on the prioritizations list. It's the one I'm looking at. It's number 2. It's internal market features, and that has 3 different sub features that make that up.
Yep.
So that would be something that could go into that.
Awesome. Yeah.
As a part of that actually sort of is on the I'll call it a dynamic roadmap, ever changing dynamic roadmap.
Yeah, and essentially, if we can just attract more devs both on the front end and the back end, Den would get things built faster, right?
Yeah, because then you get into the realm of what we see proven, shown with other purely cryptocurrency projects. For example, it's out there. Here's how you participate. Here's what that participation is rewarded in. If you want more of an ownership stake or share or influence over this network, then here's how to do that, and here's the work to put in to receive that. And we've seen that happen over and over again, where you get a ballooning dev resource allotment based on people saying, "Oh, I can just do this and plug into it, and I can be rewarded for it." So yeah, I'm pretty much for that. We'd have to talk about how to do that, like what experimental features, for example, the latest one that we put in. How long do we want to keep that under testing before it goes public? I'm not against exposing that at all, because as long as it's designed right, I don't see it as a problem that people know how to, for example, avoid, like how to gamify the settings for the economy reputation, because that's kind of the point, is to show people here's where the boundaries are. The further outside of them you get, the more it's going to affect your rewards. And so here's exactly where you need to keep your numbers, and here's how to do it. Open sourcing can do that for us.
I agree, because in the end, it'll either be that someone realizes, oh, it's better for me, it's more profitable, it's more rewarding if I just follow the rules, or they will find a hole that we don't realize is there, and then we can figure that out, right?
Yep.
So,
and that will be something that, with leaderboard, for example, which is an ongoing, there's no front end stuff to show on that, but there's stuff that's being done on that. It's just it's slow because of what's been going on this week. But with leaderboard, we can actually show a lot of data that can help the community find holes. Hey, here's our top 10 earners, for example. You don't have to say how much they're earning, but you can say, here's our top 10 earners. And if somebody in that top 10, the whole community knows they're putting out garbage, why are they earning? Then you can use that as a signal to say, okay, let's look into why that's happening. So it helps. I think it helps. It helps a lot. Exactly. It helps more than it hurts.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. There's definitely some stuff I would want to clean up. Like, I know everything I write is like ugly as fuck.
I will tell you, that's the funniest thing about open sourcing something, is that the devs get very anxious about how, wait a minute, is some of this code messy, or somebody going to call me names?
Right. And that's on the flip side. So I've talked about why I'm for it. What makes me reluctant is like people are going to tear up the way things are written. Not that it doesn't work, But it's like,
Yeah.
I would have done it this way, or I would have done it that
Yeah.
way, or the right way to do it is
Yeah.
this other way. It's like, yeah, okay, well then put in a pull request, bro. What do
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of the answer to that.
There's one thing that's like say as an example, the way the implementation is on the energy distribution or how it's tracked. We made a decision way back that made sense, but now that we see how everything works, there's a better way to do it. But that's work. That's a decent amount of work. So we haven't changed that. But that's one of the things that potentially could be fixed.
But then even if somebody sees something they don't like and they make a fuss about it, they're making a fuss about it, which is bringing attention to it, and other people can come in and look at it. And if they want to fix it, they can freaking fix it, which would be great. So right. I think overall, like that's the whole point of open source is that it's like lay it all out to bear. Here's what's working. If you've got a better way of doing this that does the same thing or improves it, fantastic. Here's some rewards for that. Stuff like that.
Well, and that, I guess in all truth, fundamentally the simplest thing will be, even if it's manual to start, it doesn't have to be programmatically integrated, but if somebody says, hey, you guys could have done this, and they submit a pull request with a patch, we'll review it and it'll go to a DENDAO vote, and we'll point
that's
to,
what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that, it would be fantastic to have it officially integrated with GitHub to where every project gets its own layer to discuss or something, right?
Yeah, right.
But in the meantime, there's no reason at all that we can't just look at GitHub, look at the pull requests, talk about it on Den in the DENDAO layer, have a discussion post, come up with a sort of a loose idea of how we think the community will go vote on it, and then create a GI. And if it passes, go over there and click the button and bring in the pull request. You know what I mean? Like that can very easily be done that way.
And I do think we could probably open up an entirely new, market for that on, a project governance, open source or not. It could be closed as well as open. Way to do project governance, and I almost guarantee that they would be valuable to a lot of projects. So,
Yep. I think that, let's see, I'm looking at the priorities list. Is there anywhere that, I don't think there's anywhere that would, there's only 12 on here though. So there is room. So that can be something that's on the priorities list.
Yep.
So that's not bad. I might be looking at an old one. This is from June. Yeah, this is an old one. But yeah, this is that's something that's the sooner we do that. Greg would say the same thing. He was here last week or the week before, and he mentioned something about the sooner you open source, the easier it is to be open source.
Yeah.
The sooner we do that, the more fruit that would yield, for everything else that we want to do.
Right.
Because if, because then, and I guess the last thing I'll say is like, I'm just imagining how that would go, because then even if DENDAO prioritization is on one particular feature, but somebody else who really wants a certain feature has the chops to just do it, wants to do it, then, oh, hey, we got a feature that was outside of the roadmap that now we don't have to take up a roadmap spot for. It's just done. They can just make your own soon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's see. And then Backstage is saying we do have a few things that pass to be added to the next vote. So cool. Let's see. Let me check the comments here for a second. Looks like I Am for I Am is very for open source. So that would be another voting denizen to get a temperature check on. Sounds like he's for it. All right, cool. I don't think there's anything else to be said about that, but it's food for thought. That sounds good.
I think we're good. So is that everything?
Yeah, I think so. I was just scanning for comments and stuff here. I don't think there are any more. Let me go back to DENDAO real quick and see if there's anything.
Nonprofit Beyond the Screen.
Yeah. Never heard of it. I'll look it up.
We'll have to look it up. Yeah.
Boom. Here we go. And all right, found my spot. Okay, no more replies in there. So cool. That's going to be our governance call for today. Reminders. We had World Blockchain Roundtable earlier today. Good episode. We have another one coming up next week that you can add questions to over in the World Blockchain Roundtable layer. There's also an opportunity for you to add questions in a weekly AMA that Joe does on Super Happy Dragon Lucky. That's in the Dragon Chain layer. This happens every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. And then I have basically a coffee meetup, Coffee with Den, on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern that anybody is allowed to show up and call in for. Open for call-ins, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So just a reminder on the other stuff there. Let's see. Anything else? Thinking. And that's it for right now. That's the stuff that we've been working on this week. And I hope to get into... I want to get stuff up on the leaderboard ASAP. But this stuff with the migration just was like... what do you call it? Operationally took precedent. So,
yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that's what I got. Thanks everybody for chiming in. Looks like Hyperion Frequency and I Am for I Am are both a yay vote on the open sourcing. So good temperature check on that today. And yeah, that's it.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks everybody. Have a good weekend and all. We'll see you whenever we see you.
Thanks a bunch. Bye.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, raw capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible. But that conclusion is laughable, so with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now?